Hello everyone, and welcome to another classic horror movie review time-lapse art thing with me, Angela of Morbid Heart Designs. You can't tell by my voice, I'm super excited. I love how this one came out, and I love how Frankenstein came out, so you'll see by the end of this how the final product of The Bride turned out. It just makes me so freaking happy. I didn't think this would, but it did. The Bride of Frankenstein is from 1935. It is a sequel to Frankenstein from 1931. It is directed by James Whale as well. It stars Boris Karloff, Elsa Lanchester, Colin Clive. Premise of this movie is that Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, reveals that her main character of her novel did survive. Dr. Frankenstein has felt so much guilt and remorse for what he did that he's sworn off science, but a friend, an even matter scientist, convinces him to build a mate for his monster, hence the Bride of Frankenstein. Now there's some interesting things that go into the history of the Bride of Frankenstein. If you like movie history, I think it was a fun one to go down the rabbit hole, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on things. Some key things that I felt were very important was that James Whale felt like Frankenstein was such a perfect masterpiece, he didn't want to do a sequel. And that's one reason it's 4 years between them, is he absolutely didn't want to do it. He refused to do it. Eventually, of course, it happened because we're talking about it. A little bit of interesting things that he didn't feel this one needed a sequel, but Hollywood liked the success of it and basically said, we want you to do it. Not only that, the script went through so many different changes. There's a lot of censorship in this time period for movies for moral sakes. I'm quotating moral sakes. And there's some scenes, and actually quite a bit had to be edited out. There was supposed to be a lot more murder and death than there was, which would have been amazing to see, but the time period really didn't allow for so much of that. Two other big things that were originally in the script and removed was there's a graveyard scene and Frankenstein sees a crucifix with Jesus on it and tries to save Jesus, but it's a statue, so there's nothing to save. But Frankenstein doesn't fully recognize this with where he is in understanding the world. That got cut. You know, sacrilege. Apparently that's a thing people care about. The other thing is a scene where Frankenstein looks longingly at an unmoving body, and they said it felt too much like it was encouraging necrophilia, which to me says Boris Karloff did an amazing job acting and showing this emotion, and I don't get, I think they could have left it and it would have been fine, but different time period. I mean, we're talking almost 100 years ago at this point. Let's get into my thoughts and review. I do like that they continued the tradition from Frankenstein where it was the monster ? Who's the monster? I thought that was fun. This one, like Frankenstein, has a narrator aspect to it. I forgot to mention that in my last video. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, as it opens up with this narration thing that it doesn't end with. I don't get it. Have the consistency. Maybe it's because these are based off of a book. I don't really fully know, but it was weird, it was confusing, it was whatever the fuck. I do like that this movie continues on shortly after Frankenstein. There's not a lot of time that goes between the movies, which does help with our understanding and where Frankenstein is in the beginning of the movie and how we see him evolve as a person who actually has quite a bit of cognitive skills, which you didn't think he did after the first one, and he does after this one. I am actually really curious. There is a scene with Frankenstein in the water, and I wonder what makeup they used for him, because it looked like it held up really well, but maybe it didn't. I don't know. The filming was so different back then. Maybe they did a lot of touch-ups. Maybe that scene took 2 whole days to film because of touch-ups. I don't know. But I am intrigued on learning more about that particular scene. Sometimes I didn't feel like this was a horror movie, even though it's classified as a drama, horror, sci-fi, just like Frankenstein. There was a lot of comedy to it, or attempts at comedy. There's a character called Minnie. I fucking hate her. Oh my god. I hated that character. She is so annoying and pointless. Her dialect was ridiculous, and I do think the actress did a good job at making her annoying. I think that was the purpose. Fucking hated her. The movie could have done without Minnie in it as much as Minnie was. Beginning, fine, but she's throughout the whole goddamn movie. There was a fun little scene with some small people that I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. I find it interesting that as far as awards that this movie received, it was hardly nominated for anything when it came out, but like the re-release of DVD and Blu-ray and whatnot, it's gotten tons of awards. It's kind of amusing. Like the remastering of this movie made it better. Oh, there is an interesting, if you have the Universal box set, there is actually an interesting documentary about preserving and salvaging these movies. I highly recommend it. Definitely a lot of fun. Anyways, back to Bride of Frankenstein. The small people. Did I finish that thought? I don't know. They were cool. It was fun. It was random. It filled up a lot of time in the movie that didn't really need to be there, but it also showed how fucked up the other mad scientists and the plot was. So it had a purpose. This movie is definitely more fast-paced than the Frankenstein, given how many years have passed by. It didn't feel as much like a silent movie as the first one did, the Frankenstein. It felt more like it was a progression into the adaptation of movies with sound. And it's really disappointing Frankenstein still continued to be a misunderstood character to the point that the Bride of Frankenstein didn't want anything to do with him. There's a lot of ethical and moral things about this movie that are definitely wrong. I mean, creating life from dead bodies, probably not the best thing. Can go along with cloning. Probably shouldn't clone people. But to create somebody to be the mate and lover of someone they've never met before and they don't get a choice in it, that's really weird. And that's gonna go tying into the moral of the story. Just because you think somebody should love you and should be with you does not mean that they want to. People have free choice. Don't be surprised if you make a woman from dead body parts and she doesn't want to be with you. Intriguing to me that there's so much romance around the Bride and Frankenstein. After seeing this, I'm torn. It doesn't feel right. I don't get it. Maybe I need to watch the other Frankenstein movies to understand it more. There's a lot in the Universal box collection, and I haven't made my way through all of them. I'm just focusing on the first movies, the main character movies that they were introduced, kind of a thing. So I don't know. If you understand it, please educate me. Explain it to me. I'm totally open to understanding it more. It feels kind of like a word I can't really say on YouTube. Not that I'm monetized, but so I say fuck a lot. So I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm getting rambly. So I guess that's time to thank my patrons. You are amazing and wonderful as always. I hope you've had fun seeing this series evolve and this piece evolve. And isn't she gorgeous? You can see her by now. Isn't she gorgeous? Fucking love how this one turned out. And with all that being said, from my dark heart to yours, have a wonderful day. And please don't die before my next video.